When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to anfieldindexpro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to an Anfield Index special. Ladies and gents, the Jurgen Klopp era is set to reach a close, isn't it, anytime soon? And we know what he's done for the club, and we know the things he's done for the city. We know what he is as a man. And to talk about that, when you've got someone who's been told by Jamie Carragher that their book is a brilliant read from start to finish, and the likes of Rory Smith describe it as heartfelt and absorbing, it seems right to have a good chat with him. So I'm delighted to welcome the renowned and respected Dan Morgan, the author of Jurgen Said to Me. Dan, how are we?
I'm not too bad. Fresh off a win against Tottenham yesterday, so I think it's lifted the moods of everyone. And yeah, just looking forward with a bit of trepidation, a bit of melancholy to the last couple of weeks of this manager at the club.
Yeah, I think that's the same for everyone. The sun was shining yesterday; it was in full beam, but yeah, there is a bit of sort of sadness and many takes with what's to come. And Dan, I want to get right into this because, I mean, I've ordered it. I know other people will and want to hear about this. The Jurgen Said to Me, out officially on the 13th of May, but I know you can pre-order it now at the same time. I mean, what intrigues me is it says, and I know you've put it out there, that this was almost an idea you've had for a while, but it's kind of come to fruition. And maybe with the bombshell of the news that Jurgen dropped this season, it sort of accelerated. I mean, how much fun has this been to sort of compile and put together for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, fun is a really good way of describing it. I really enjoy writing it, is the first thing I'd say. You know, it's the first book I've done. I've listened to authors talk about writing books, and it sounds like an arduous process. It sounds like a slog. Yeah. Sounds like a labour of love a lot of the time. And this wasn't really, you know, I think we just won the FA Cup in 2022 and, you know, start the song that obviously leads into the title of the book. And I remember that semi-final against City and this, you know, baking hot day at Wembley, and just from around a couple of miles away from the ground, you could just hear this chant. It was sort of really theme tuning the day. And you could just see the love, the admiration. You know, the manager then had just signed a new contract to 2026, and he was our guy. And, you know, he'd been our guy for a long time and still to this day remains so. And it just felt right, to be honest, Dave. It was there. It was all there. You know, I didn't really care that much about the time, you know, the sort of grammatical way in which I wrote it. I just knew it needed to come out. I knew the idea was right. I knew it was what I wanted to do, and I knew who to speak to as well. That was the other thing, really. So, the idea that it's all there, it's sort of bubbling inside you, and it's right to do it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I sacrificed the whole summer for it. So, you know, wow. I was having nights where people were out enjoying themselves, and I was looking out the window. You know, just sort of questioning myself a little bit, but it was definitely worth it. And okay, I've been slightly fortunate with the time, and depending on how you want to look at that. But I get to give this to the world at the most optimum time, really, at the time when Jurgen Klopp unfortunately leaves our football club.
Yeah, and I know that this book, Dan, it's not written in sort of chronological order. It's not like a tale of the season. It's more about sort of the man, isn't it, rather than just about the football club. And you mentioned, like you say, those summer nights. I mean, what's gone into this, to give us sort of a spoiler, what's gone into this sort of research, getting insights from people and the work that's gone on almost behind the scenes that way?
Yeah, so I think I was listening to Jurgen recently do an interview, and he said something like, he said, you'll see a lot of books about me, but you'll never see one from me. And I guess the best way I could frame this is that it's actually a book for him. And so, the question a lot of people have asked me and keep asking me is, have you spoken to him for it? Have you tried to interview him? And the answer was always from the start, no. I never wanted this to be an inside look at Jurgen Klopp. I never wanted it to be biographical. There's enough of those out there. I wanted it to be a story about him and his affinity and relationship with Liverpool, but also, a story about Liverpool as a place, a story about Liverpool Football Club, my story. So in that, the book really has 4 characters: Jurgen, the city, the club, and me, really. And so, to do that, I really wanted to speak to stakeholders of Liverpool, people who can tell a story of Liverpool on a day-to-day basis, both from inside and outside of the city. People who make Liverpool what it is and have made it down the years what it is, and people who can attest to Liverpool's economy, Liverpool's sort of local political standing, Liverpool developments, Liverpool's trauma, all of those things, because all of those things were here before, and all of those things play a massive part in that October day when Jurgen Klopp walks through the door. Because first and foremost, you can't make the thing without the thing already being present, if that makes sense. There has to be a body of work already there that he understood. He got to know himself, and then he brought himself to that. And like I said before, it becomes this wonderful alchemy. And so, I really just wanted to speak to people a lot of the time in the community. So, I spoke to local business owners around Anfield. I spoke to local political journalists. I spoke to the mayor of Liverpool. I spoke to people from Australia, people from America, who support Liverpool, who have an investment in Liverpool. I mean, these are the people, to local community work at a tea. These people hold Liverpool up every day as a place. So who's better to tell the values of a place, the story of a place, than these people? And then also, you frame that within the time that Jurgen was here and what that represents to them and what it meant. And that's not everyone. I spoke to a Manchester United supporter, and so, but that's a really interesting insight in terms of, there's not really a lot of comparatives between Klopp and Ferguson, but I think they are there in terms of they're both people who got a place, they understood a place, they understood the sort of characteristics of it and how they could bend and break themselves to fit those characteristics, I think.
Wow. I mean, I am intrigued, and we're probably going to ask it because I do want to know, Dan. Have you got like almost a bit of a spoiler alert, like a favourite story? Because I mean, the variety and the amount of people that you've spoken to is amazing. But is the one that you like really made you laugh or was poignant with you at all? Any stories that you think really stood out for you?
I think it's less stories, to be honest, and more. I think it's more some of the lines in the book, which really just, some of them. This was before I'd put a word on paper. These were like interviews I was doing with contributors, or it was exchanges I was having with them via telephone or whatever other platform. And some of the lines that they used, they just made the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. And they were incredibly beautiful and poetic and really impactful. So there's a couple that I can think of off the top of my head. There's a journalist I spoke to, Michael Cambridge, who's in Texas, and he basically he'd done this incredible monologue when I asked him a question, and I wasn't expecting it, and he had me in a trance, to be honest.
Wow.
And he finishes this monologue, and he's talking about the sort of the compounds of like Klopp and the people and the city and Anfield, and he just basically. He almost never drew breath, and he got to the end and he said, when all those things come together, and he's talking about Anfield, and he says, it's a hellish place to play. and Jurgen Klopp made it that way. And I was like, wow, that's going in.
Yeah.
And then you go to someone like Damien Cavani, and he talks about Hillsborough, and he says that, I remember him saying the phrase vividly. He said you could taste the sorrow in the air, and that line just haunted me, like really stuck with me. And then Steve Armstrong, who I mentioned before, the Man United supporter, he used a wonderful phrase where he talked about being in Anfield in a game around 91, 92, and Liverpool beat United, and it essentially means Leeds win the league. And, he said the elation on the Liverpool supporters' faces that day, he wasn't down about it, because to him, he said, that was us, and he used this phrase, thought it was great. He said that was us crossing Liverpool on the stairs. And, I actually used it later on in the book to say there was a certain moment where, Liverpool cross United again on those same stairs. That Klopp elevates Liverpool as United are going down, Liverpool are going up. And so there's all of these lines in it. You just, you just sort of hang on to, and they really, really grip you when you're doing it. I think if there's one part of it, which I do cover in the book, and I'm glad I spoke to Sean O'Donnell from Boss Night about it, was because it's one of the most remembered and favourite times of the 8.5 years that I can remember is being in Shevchenko Park in Ukraine before the 2018 Champions League final. There's these certain moments. Something happened that day. Something changed. Like, I don't want to be overly romantic about it, but you just felt 10 feet tall. And he actually says that walking towards the stadium, you actually felt like no matter what the outcome of that game was going to be, this was only the start for us. This was the beginning. There was only one club. There was only one thing that people were looking at, and it was Liverpool under this manager. And that day was just an incredible example of the unity, the belief that he had tried to instill from the minute he walked through the door. And you just have these little pockets and snippets of reminders of things that changed you, and things that made you a believer from a doubter, I guess, to coin him. And they might be different for everyone. For some people it could be as big as Barcelona, but for others it could just be, Burnley on New Year's Day in 2018 or whatever. It could just it could be anything really. And people have their own sort of pins in those maps. And for me, I really remember Shevchenko Park, and I tried my best to illustrate it and to verbalise it and to put it down in the book, and just how sort of mesmeric it was. It was sort of like a Narnia for Liverpool supporters. It was this huge green enclosed space that was just filled with plumes of red smoke and red banners, and it was just the energy, the optimism. You could definitely sense it. It was a brilliant time. That I remember it vividly.
Wow. And I am intrigued because you said like the four characters, and one of them's you. And as you started obviously talking to people, sort of getting your memories down on paper, has it triggered things you'd almost forgotten about just because of the length and breadth of the work and the impact that Jurgen Klopp's had? Had you thought, God, I'd forgotten that, or that's come back to my memory when you've been writing it down or speaking to people for you?
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with libertyshield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit libertyshield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I think so. I think there's definitely a little bit about the COVID era, which we all probably have tried to forget. And I think that probably speaks socially for our relationship with the pandemic in general. But, there's definitely parts of that where, again, speaking to Neil Jones about it in the book, and, he talks about leaving the stadium after the Chelsea game when we've won the league and we've lifted the trophy inside the stadium. There's no supporters there. And, that really hits home, and that really gives you a sense of, that was incredibly difficult beyond a scale of comprehension. Really, even now, you can't really comprehend what happened, and it makes no sense even now, even though we all lived it. And so there are parts that, to be honest, it was more just enjoying getting the perspective of other people. And like I say, that's not always a football perspective. That could be, what it was like for Home Baked to be in to manage a business around Anfield during the pandemic, which I think, some people might say, well, what's that got to do with Jurgen Klopp? It's got everything to do with it, in my opinion. These are both, again, representative stakeholders of Anfield in their own way. And so, if you're a visitor to the stadium for the first time or the 1,000th time, I think you have a duty to understand what holds that place up and what makes Anfield Anfield. The thing I'll always say is, my nan still lives on Priory Road and still goes out and tells people off when they litter. Because and so you have a responsibility, and this is the thing, you have a responsibility to that, and I don't think you don't necessarily have a responsibility to know, and I'm not imploring anyone to read the book or whatever, but I'm saying I think it's at the very least interesting to find out, okay, well, what happened here? What makes Liverpool beyond Klopp, beyond the club? Like, what happened in Liverpool during the pandemic? How did local businesses hold themselves up? What is this thing that he is a very big part of, but also is on a broader scale, bigger than the actual club itself? And so, my thing is, look, I don't show a lot of myself in the book. I'm the prologue and the epilogue are very much mine. But I'm more the narrator, I guess, in that sense. But I never wanted it to be, a memoir of me. I can recite some of my own experiences in there, and will do, across the book in small bits. But to me, it was more about telling the story of him and the city and the people who were involved in it more than myself.
Wow. And I suppose there could be loads of this, but people are naturally, with the time coming to an end, they're looking for words on Jurgen Klopp, aren't they? They're talking a lot about the football, the impact, but from the impact on the city, is there anything that stood out for Jurgen Klopp, I should say, in terms of his humanity or him as a character? Because that's what a lot of people in the city talk to. Is there anything that you thought, wow, like maybe things didn't surprise you, but just really stood out for you in terms of him as a person?
I think it's really interesting that, we're living with the reality that he's leaving, and also, I guess we're living with the reality of what he cited as the reason why he's leaving, which is that he's run out of energy. And I think the thing that I keep coming back to more than anything is he just brought an incredible energy to the place. The city, for me, I lived there for the majority of Klopp's time, and I was raised there, so I had a body of evidence of how it felt before that. The city just felt on fire. You just felt like, I've used this metaphor a few times, but it felt like the kitchen party when everywhere else was closed. It just felt. I remember doing City Talk at the top of St John's Tower, and I did it on a Monday night at 5:00 after work, and those early years of Jurgen, I'd run to the tower, and it wasn't so I could get on air. It was just so I could stand at the top and take in this panoramic view of the city, because it just felt like he'd brought the place to such life. And, there'll be plenty of Evertonians who disagree with that and won't have a clue what I'm talking about. But for me, who was in there, I can only speak for myself, the energy that he brought to Liverpool, it was everything, it really encapsulated the place in loads of ways, and then it's an emotional place. It's a very sort of heart on your sleeve place, and it wears its emotions unashamedly. And it's a place of great beauty, but great struggle. It's the greatest night out, but it's also the worst hangover. And he gave a lot of nights out and a lot of hangovers. It was just a real. I think it was a really important time for a generation who hadn't had that of support in this club.
Yeah.
And he actually said, I don't know when this is going out, but he said yesterday after the Spurs game, that to paraphrase, he reminded us of who we always were. And that's very true. I think it's a really, really poignant, on point that he's made. But also there was a lot of supporters who were also, they were getting older, who hadn't lived that for themselves.
Yeah.
And so I guess a big question of this is, okay, well, what does it mean to win? And also, a big question, a more existential question from us, from a Liverpool supporting perspective is, how do we actually define what the Liverpool way is? Because again, that's another phrase that we'd heard for years, and I wasn't quite sure I understood what it actually meant. I knew snippets of what I thought it meant, football and knowledge and appreciation, a respectable sort of outlook, and a stadium which at its best could be incredibly powerful. But was it to, and I think ultimately the answer is it's to win with Liverpool as a concept and as a city and as a place, mirroring exactly what it is that you put out on the pitch. And I think that's his greatest gift, really, is that he gave us a team that was it was swimming in the values that we hold as people. It was hard work, and it was honest. It was a team that you would go to war for, to be honest, because they would do it for you. And when you see those traits that I think are definitely in a lot of us and definitely in the place mirrored in a football team, then there's no question, there's unconditional buy-in, and then we know what that yielded in terms of what came next.
Yeah, the rest is history, as they say. And I mean, the final day coming, I mean, there's going to be some old fellas, there's going to be some hard fellas, pretty emotional on this final day, this Wolves game. With what you've done, Dan, and what you've written, and obviously everything, is it going to be as much so for you? Are you going to be thinking about all these things on the final day and what Jurgen meant to you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, unashamedly, the day he left, or he announced he was leaving, like everyone else, hit me like a ton of bricks. And, I was writing a newsletter at 2 a.m. in my living room sobbing, because I couldn't deal with it. And I couldn't deal with the concept of this sort of incredibly impactful influence on my life being taken away. And that might sound, again, there might be people who don't follow football who just think that's unbelievable. And that's, in some ways that's incredibly foolish. But, the thing I'll always say about Jurgen Klopp and watching Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool is it's taught me more about certain values, certain human values such as togetherness, resolve, hard work, community. It's taught me more about those things more than, a lot of the adult peers that I've had across my life before he walked in. So, I was from, grew up in a deprived area of Liverpool, didn't have a lot of prospects. And, that would be the same for a lot of people in the city. And I think he's definitely instilled certain things about what can be achieved together when you believe in something, when when you're behind that concept, when you show the requisite qualities as a collective, when you come together and say, we can do this a different way, and we can achieve a different way, then I think there's a lot of people who maybe previously wouldn't have believed that was possible, because football is quite a harsh environment, isn't it? And it, in a lot of ways, teaches you a lot of bad values, especially around money. especially with how you view money at that level. And, you know, we're all in some ways guilty of maybe having been a little bit hypocritical at points in our lives watching football by advocating that you spend millions upon millions of pounds, or, you know, you give very, very young men quite sort of grotesque wealth. That, you know, that in any other sort of facet of your life you wouldn't advocate for at all, but because it's football, it tends to be okay. And so, you know, I'm not saying that Liverpool's players survived on pennies and, you know, lived outside the stadium, but what I'm saying is, yeah, it was all of those things were present, and yet they probably always will be. But God, did we see a team in our image? You know, did we see a team that showed us a few things about what you can do if you believe and you're together, and you know, you sort of have that collective will to say, no, we'll do this a different way. And they did do it a different way. You know, that's the thing. And I think the only other thing for me is, you know, and I've been saying this a little bit on the Anfield Wrap and other places, but, you know, don't let anyone tell you that he didn't build the perfect football team, because he did. Because ultimately what they did in the calendar year of 2019 was as perfect and as good a football team that you'll ever see in your life. And, you know, there was fellas who've supported this, and women who've supported this club for a lot of years, and who've seen a lot of very, very, very good Liverpool sides that have won titles, won European Cups, that have, you know, won doubles and trebles and whatever else. And they were saying, this is the greatest side we've ever seen. What they did in that calendar year was phenomenal, was unprecedented in lots of ways. And it's a shame that, maybe it's a shame it's only yielded one Premier League title and one European Cup, but they were as perfect as you're going to see, I think. And, you know, I think that's the thing that we need to remember about him. Yeah, he was an incredible influence on our lives. Yeah, he was, you know, socially on point, and, you know, in terms of a manager of people, he was definitely our guy and will remain so for the bulk of our lifetimes. But he was also an elite football manager. You know, he was as good as they come, really. And it was only because he was up against a machine of an organisation in Manchester City is the reason he didn't win more. But his output and what he did for Liverpool in terms of backing it up on the pitch, it's unquestionable.
Yeah, without doubt. Genuinely, I'm looking forward to reading this. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dan, but 13th of May it's out, isn't it? I know it's available for pre-order, and I know there's been quite a few things that people have been asking around about. I don't know if they've happened yet or to come, but doing events with the likes of, you say, the Wrap, the brilliant Neil Atkinson and different people. So is there any more events people should be aware of, or signings, anything like that at all?
Yeah. So as you've alluded to, book is out on 13th of May. You can still pre-order now via Amazon, Waterstones, WH Smith's, all the major retailers. There's 2 events planned. So one is in Metro Cola, the old Hannah's Bar around Hanover Street on Liverpool. That's on Thursday, the 16th of May at 7 p.m. And there's another event in East London in the Gun Pub on Wells Street in Hackney on Wednesday, the 29th of May. Both start at 7 p.m. Both will be hosted by Neil Atkinson and be with him and myself in conversation. There'll also be a book selling and signing there for people. So if you go to Eventbrite and have a look for Jurgen Said to Me or Jurgen Klopp, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Or you can go to any of my socials and there'll be a link there in the bio that you can get some tickets for. It's going really well. You know, I mean, they're not charged the tickets. I need to start just so I can, you know, monitor the attendance of these things. So that's the only reason I've made them ticketed. But yeah, if you want to pick one up, they're free. And so, yeah, it'd be lovely to see people come along and especially the Thursday before Wolves. You know, I think that whole week now is just going to be a really emotional build-up. So I think being together and you know, collectively sort of getting through this together is going to be a bit of a must, really, in terms of dealing with, you know, these last few days until we get to that game. And you know, I know you said you asked it before, but I've got I don't think he's got any idea what type of reaction it's going to be once that full-time whistle goes. I actually think he's a little bit worried about it. I don't think he's going to be able to control his emotions in a lot of ways. I think, things like speaking in the stadium after the game, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do genuinely, because I think it's just going to be such an overwhelmingly emotional affair for everyone. But yeah, it'd be lovely to see everyone, and I can just say, yeah, I hope everyone enjoys it. I hope for me it just goes down well with people who are invested and who have lived this journey as well, and they can get something from it. And yeah, it's a surreal time in loads of ways, but I'm glad I've been able to bring this out now. Yeah,
fully believable. And it's a must-have, ladies and gents, a must-read. So all it really leaves me to say is, Dan, for the time, for the insight, much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Good stuff. And ladies and gents, that was an Anfield Index special.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.